they still listen to like the audio stuff. Like I'm
Yeah.
probably doing a bit overkill with like doing the video, but it also just kind of keeps my editing skills sharp. Because like a lot of the time when I'm doing it via the video switcher, I'm not actually like using Premiere Pro. So like when I actually have to like, when I do like, I did a kit video for someone back in January, and I was like, oh, I actually have to cut this up and like make something of this. Like I've not just done it while we've been recording. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got into this sphere of things. What was it that got you interested in it?
When I was sort of 13, 14, around that age, I got into mountain biking, and then I started making YouTube videos on the side of that. Just put a GoPro on the helmet and would just ride the bike and have fun. But then that started to get a bit of traction, and I ended up enjoying the video side of it more than the mountain biking. I think I got to like 1,000 subscribers, so the monetization like threshold. And started getting like sponsorships from companies. So they'd send me out products.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'd leave reviews for them, make like review videos, product videos, and I was like an affiliate for them. So I'd have like a link for people to use.
It's very common like Amazon stuff and that as well, isn't
exactly.
it? Yeah,
Just like that. And they'd put in like Archie MacRae, MTB was the name, Archie MacRae mountain biking, and they'd get like 10% off. And then I'd get paid 10% on top of that commission. So I done that for a while, and then I was just really interested in the video aspect, the YouTube aspect of that, being sort of an influencer. And then I got myself a proper camera. It was Canon G7X. I think I got the first one, like the one that all vloggers get.
Yeah.
So I used that for a while and started going out taking photos just in the town or of my cat and stuff like that. And then it kind of just took off from there, really.
It's amazing how like quick this kind of stuff can escalate. You know, like I was just talking about how I kind of got started in it, but it is as simple as like doing something for a hobby. Like I'm yet to meet someone that's like purposely took this up thinking I'm going to get paid for this, or I'm going, you know what I mean? It just kind of all just kind of comes organically. And that's something that you're quite a big proponent of. Like I obviously we follow each other on LinkedIn. I keep up with a lot of your kind of posts, and one of the things that like I found quite interesting is your kind of approach to, because you had a business before the Cinemalist that you said that didn't go as well, or and you were saying that you kind of focused too much on, or the tunnel vision was how do I get income? Like that was like the kind of the thing that it revolved around. And when you actually kind of moved away from that, and how can I actually meet others' ideas, creations and stuff like that organically, actually benefited you more financially from that kind of thinking? Like when did you kind of realize or come to that kind of realization that that was more the way forward for not just because I think focusing too much on like I know income's important, because obviously the reality of life is you need money to survive, but like kind of over obsessing on that, like being at the start line and wanting to get to the finish line within 10 seconds kind of takes away from the actual enjoyment of the journey of it, I find. Because I think we're all a bit like that, aren't we? Where we fret over where we are, or we're worried about how we're doing in life and all that, you know? Yeah.
I think life's kind of like driving a car. You know, when you're accelerating the car, you're going from 60 to 100. That acceleration's fun. It's exactly what you said. It's the journey. That's the fun part, not the destination. So the man who enjoys the walk will walk further than the man who's enjoying the destination.
Yeah.
But I think, well, the first business I started was Highland Heights Media, and it was kind of a all-in-one solution for everything. So there was videography, there was Google reviews, there was web design, graphic design, logo design, all of these things, photography, photo editing, video editing, just pretty much everything a freelancer could do. And no one came to it. I think when you're not being niche, I think you need to be niche to a certain degree. You need to focus on helping a certain type of person. You can't help everyone.
No.
And when I realised that kind of switched up. So I changed the name of it from Highland Heights Media to the Cinemalist. I'm going to focus on video, purely video, and that's it. Video for businesses. So we're now kind of moving into like social media management stuff and more like content packages. So it's like a monthly subscription that people will pay, and we'll make videos for their Instagram, their TikTok each month, and they'll pay that each month. And yeah, it's much more beneficial for business, you could say.
I definitely think so, because this is the way of the world now, isn't it? In terms of like social media, whether we like it or not, is massive. Like, I think it's probably the number one thing for business promotion these days.
Absolutely.
Like, I've got business cards and stuff like that. I put them out. I don't think I've got one person come in from seeing them.
They
you
don't
know,
do anything,
like I put like 2 hours into Canva making them, man.
Yeah.
Like, but then when like I built a website, or when I built a website, I paid someone to build a website for me, taking credit there where I shouldn't be. But stuff like that, or then when I made like a bit of a short video kind of explaining everything that I did, there was more, you know, suddenly emails started coming through, you know. So it goes to show that like it's because everyone's on the internet in some way, shape or form, pretty much 24/7 now, right? And like even things of like the first 5 seconds or first 3 seconds, whatever it is, being eye-catching to kind of hold someone's attention, because that's half the battle, isn't it? Holding someone's attention to actually watch a full 1 minute or 30 seconds or whatever it may be. But like, are you kind of seeing this now when you're doing stuff for businesses? Like, do they already know that social media is the way forward, or do they even get kind of surprised with like, not just obviously the quality, because the videos that you do are like, quite frankly, amazing. Like I was saying to you over a message, like they give me imposter syndrome. Seriously, like when I was just saying to you before we started recording that when the first video I seen of yours was you were up at SBG Murray, which is a place that I've also been up to for some film and stuff. And I was seeing this and I was like, I'm done. I was like, I can't compete. But it's good though. Like I think you get to see like kind of different kind of creative styles, the way kind of, because everyone does this differently. I think if everyone did it the same, there would just be no point in there. There has to be like a bit of personality put into it. But like, are you kind of seeing businesses realize in real time when you do this is actually really beneficial, as opposed to like getting a banner and putting it somewhere in the town or back in the day, like yellow pages and newspapers and all that type of stuff?
It's a very interesting question, a good one. I speak to people a lot about this. 90% of Elgin, anyway, they don't see it. They rely on footfall. They're very like old-fashioned, traditional in their sense of growing their business. You know, they're going with the Spotlight magazine that comes through your door. They're advertising on that. Now that's great if you're a joiner or you're a plumber, business to customer. But if you're business to business, you're not. No,
there's no connection.
No,
yeah,
it's going to go through some doors, but 90% of people are going to put it in the bin.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
That's so true. Half of mail that comes through the door goes in the bin now.
It does.
I think it's just because, like, for me growing up, the only thing that would go in the bin through the mail was political leaflets when it came to election time, because they would all come through at once, right? So there would be Conservative, Labour, Liberal Democrat, etc., etc. And people would just be like, oh, they're trying to influence me. But now it's like everything. Because every letter seems to be pointless. Everyone that I get, it's either like some kind of offering insurance that I'm not going to use, and it never seems to be like bank statements are all online now, so you don't get any bank statement.
The letterbox has become an advertising space, pretty much.
Yeah, and like a pretty not great one,
pretty bad one.
Like a failing one. Yeah,
absolutely.
But 100% agree with you. I sound bad when I say this, but I feel like Murray as a whole is 10 years behind the rest of like
100%
industry. Like if we were in Edinburgh or Glasgow right now, I guarantee we'd probably increase our own kind of business at least 30%.
Easily.
Just because people are more open to doing this sort of thing, right? Where I think still up here there's a mentality of like be scared of like a camera. And I get that. Like I'm not saying that like I'm looking down people for doing that. And when people come in here, there's people that were incredibly nervous the first time they came in, and I understand that. And I say, look, take all the time. Well, not all the time that you need, but like take 5 minutes, take a breath. Like it's also kind of realizing that I think there's another kind of result of social media, but that instant kind of want to be perfect, because when we see social media, we only see the good parts of other people's lives.
Yeah.
Whereas I remember I said this to a filmmaking buddy and he kind of laughed at me. He was like, why would you say that to someone? I was like, I try to say to people, you're going to suck at first. Like, because you're not used to it, you know? But like, the good thing is when people start something like this, in the beginning, no one is listening. You have to make that happen, right? And obviously there's elements of luck in it with algorithms and stuff like that these days. But I think it's just like, don't act like you've got 10 million people listening to you when you've not. So there's no reason to be nervous, right? And then
the chance of your first video getting that is pretty
very
slim.
very slim. Yeah. So I think there is still like that kind of rural nature to Moray where like it is very, you know, that's more of a Glasgow or Edinburgh, even Aberdeen thing, I guess. But I think it will come. It's just going to take time. And like you say, like things like you know, I do Elgin City's podcast, and you know, it's not really something I don't think they'd ever thought about. But now, with the engagement they get with their fan base, because they actually get to hear not just from players and the management staff that have been in, but like people that you probably don't see that help like that kind of institution run from the bottom up. You know, so I think they've kind of seen that in real time and think, right, we're going to keep this going, make sure it's scheduled. So that's cool to see, because it feels like, it sounds a bit elitist, but I feel like I'm kind of part of that change for like a new age of like kind of being like, look, no, it's okay to do this. You don't have to be in Glasgow. You don't have to be in a big city to do something like this. Do you know what I mean? So
I think there's a big part of that as well. Like people that start, I went to Moray Business Gateway when I first started, and I told them, you know, at the time I was focused on money, as we discussed, and I said to them, you know, my goal is to make this amount by this time. I'm going to be charging this amount for this amount of my time, and they completely shut it down. They said, you know, that's way too much. No one here is going to pay that. And I was 16 at the time, and hearing that, it was like shattered my dreams. Yeah, pretty much. You know, my self-esteem, my confidence. There was no chance I was going to try and pitch that. But I think just the way, as you say, you know, it is very behind. But I think Moray doesn't want people to grow, and I think the people within Moray don't want to grow too much.
Yeah, I think they're intimidated by it.
Yeah,
because there is an element of change there with it. And I understand that, because I think with like bigger cities like Edinburgh and Glasgow, change is happening all the time. It's such a, like, if you go there from here, it's almost like a culture shock in the sense of there's people constantly going, you know, with Elgin at the moment, there's more businesses shutting down than there is opening. Like the high street is becoming vacant. I remember going through Elgin and there was 10 times the people walking through that street than there is if we went up there now. Yeah. Whereas I think obviously in Edinburgh and Glasgow, times are always moving. Everything, it's 100 miles an hour all the time, right? And I think with that kind of everyone knows everyone kind of culture that's up here, people like familiarity, don't they? And they don't want to, like, change is intimidating. I don't think anyone deals with it well. I know I don't, but I think it will come. I think it just slowly but slowly. Like I remember I joked with a friend, like when I was like speaking about this, I was like, you know, I remember seeing when I was young, right? So I used to watch The Simpsons on a channel called Sky One. So this was around like 2008, 2007 kind of time. I would see Domino's adverts, right? But we never. I'm not. This is a very bad analogy, but I would see Domino's adverts, but there was never like, I don't know, I didn't understand why that was being advertised in this area, just because there was, and then I think it came in like 2017, 2018, but like it'd been around everywhere else, what, 20, 30 years? Yeah. You know, and I know that sounds like silly because that's obviously a fast food restaurant, but it just shows you that like there's things that take ages to come up here. And I don't understand it because for some reason we seem to think, or we get told that this area is like the Orkney and Shetland. Yeah. It's not really that remote. Like it's connected to the mainland.
I mean, you're what, an hour from Inverness or from Aberdeen?
Yeah. And those are like cities that are like flourishing with like business and stuff like that. I mean, I used to go through and work in Inverness, and it looked busy, you know? Yeah. Like, I mean, it has a lot of things going on all at once. There's also like 3-lane roundabouts, which was difficult to try and cross when I was rushing to work at 9:30 in the morning. But
I actually started the business in Inverness. I was staying with a friend through there, and through there it's so different. Yeah. You know, the mindset of the business owners they were desperate for me. Like there was such a need for me through there. Instead of me trying to sell a problem and then give them the solution.
Yeah.
It was, I am the solution. They know the problem.
Yeah.
Which was great. I remember I put out my first post saying, hi everyone, I'm Archie, 17-year-old. Just started a Cinemalist here in Inverness. I would like to do some free videos just to build a portfolio and build connections. And the people, I was blown away. There was about 40 people that messaged me from Inverness, and maybe 50% of them wanted to pay. They didn't want to do it for free. They were like, no, we want you in every month doing this, But here, it's more I'm selling the problem. I'm trying to pitch, there is a problem. You need social media to grow. And then I'm giving them the solution. Yeah. Which is so hard. But in Inverness, it was half the battle.
Yeah. It is crazy because that's 40 minutes away. That's not a different world. That is literally just up the road in an hour.
Exactly.
I probably do think it's because like the way that this area is structured, there's a town, fields, city to field, and it's all kind of very. It's actually why I thought like the free bus pass thing was like a good thing for a long time, because it allows people to because in Murray, like it's mostly going to be Elgin. Like I can't think of, I think there might be the odd opportunity in Buckie for certain different things, but Elgin's kind of like the central hub of this area, right? So I think that probably plays into it a lot, and I think that probably adds to the feel of it feeling rural, because everyone feels a bit isolated in their own kind of community in that sense. But I think people are coming around. Like I think like the guys like, you'll probably notice this, like the guys like Trendsetters or the guys like the Angry Barber are probably more open and realizing of like the work that you do than like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I'm not trying to put anyone on blast or anything like that, but like someone that maybe isn't as like engaged with social media as a whole, right? Like, so we'll get to like when did you first start making advertisements for businesses through video? Like what was the kind of catalyst for thinking, right, I'll make sure, did you do stuff for free and kind of make a portfolio before actually like taking like I guess like paid client work and stuff like that beforehand? So I know you said that you were kind of more broad to begin with, and then you niched down.
Well, when it first started, I was seeing videos on social media of other people doing the same thing, and I think it was a guy called Cam Minier from the States who still runs a very successful videography business, and he's a very, very inspiring guy. And I watched one of his videos where he went into a coffee shop, he ordered a coffee, and he said to them, after he ordered the coffee, do you mind if I film a quick video for you of the coffee? And they said, yeah, he'd done the video. And then later on, he reached back out to them and signed them on a paid basis. So that's what I did. I watched that video and I was like, okay, I'm going to go into, I think it was Cup and Cone in Inverness, up by, I don't know the name of the street, but in Inverness somewhere. So I went in and just said, flat white, please, can I film you making this? And I said, this is for my portfolio. I want to grow my business. I've just started. So yeah, the first few videos were free. The ones for SBG Murray were free as well. Again, just to build a portfolio. Trendsetters, same again. I just went in. I said, I already knew Dean from before because I was speaking to him. But I said to him, can I just film a video of you doing this haircut? Completely random. I just got the new camera, so I was very excited. A bit of motivation there to.
Yeah, there's nothing like. It is kind of like a dopamine thing, isn't it? But there's nothing like getting like some of the, especially if you've like saved up for it for like a period of time. Like, I do have to hold myself back sometimes when I see like because if there's a bargain, I'm having it. You know what I mean? Even if I don't need it, like I'm so bad for it. Sometimes I literally have to put the phone down when like I'm seeing like, oh, that's went down, reduced from like £300-400, and the angel on my shoulder was like, yeah, but it's still like 600.
Yeah.
So it is like
crazy.
It is cool though, like when you get something new, and I think it's healthy to want that, but just not all the time. Like I was kind of saying before we came on that like my mind is, it could be kind of all or nothing, you know, where I'm like, I'll never buy anything ever again because I need to save every bit of money I have to just spend it all. You know what I mean? That whole kind of
you could die tomorrow, just buy everything.
Put everything on red 21 at a casino table. So, you know,
exactly. We actually sold the mountain bike for that camera.
Yeah, I did something pretty similar with so with the Roadcasters that I use for the audio stuff. I had the original, which is a great bit of kit, and it's actually really durable. Like, which is all like I can't actually compliment Rode enough of how durable that thing is, because when I first got that, I was still like a hobbyist in all this, so I wasn't really kind of keeping it very well. I had it in like a bag in a cupboard, and like a ladder fell on it one time, and all sort of like stuff that I really shouldn't have got away with, like having it working still.
Yeah.
And then the second one came out, and I seen like all this kind of 12 times the power, no need for because I had like before it was all what do you call them, fat heads and stuff, because like the original Rodecaster was good, but it didn't have enough gain to power the microphones and stuff. So I was like, I have to get this. So I'm always wheeling and dealing in my head where like if I save that amount of money, then I sell this, then that will combine, and then I've got, you know. Yeah. And somehow I managed to sell the original Rodecaster for mint condition. Like I don't know how. Like there was no marks in it. Like I said, I dropped ladders on it. It's not on purpose, obviously. Yeah. And then they're quite good with their warranties, because when I did get the second one, I started hearing about like a build fault where like the glue would come off and the faceplate started attaching like after a while, and I was like praying that it didn't happen to mine, which it did in the winter of 23, I think. But then it was covered by the warranty, and then when you use the warranty, they give you another warranty. So even if they perpetually break, which they're not, because I've had them for like a year and a half, or no, just over a year, and they're all good. So, but yeah, it's my kind of point with that is it is nice, like getting something that, especially when you know that, because it doesn't have to be something great to start with, does it? In terms of like the camera equipment, a lot of it is like shots and like creating something and telling a story through that. But it does help, right? You put someone that's a good cinematographer with a bad camera, they're still going to make something good. But if you put someone that's a great cinematographer with an even greater camera, you know what I mean? So that's cool. So you're using the Sony FX30. How have you found that? Yeah. Like I've looked it up a few times. It's I think the annoying thing with cameras is for me, I'm always searching for the perfect thing, and I don't think there is going to be a perfect thing.
There's not.
Unless like I'm paying like 40 grand, in which case like I'll be in debt for, you know,
forever,
and I'm done, you know, like that 1 minute of moment, like
I think you need an arsenal if you're going to get cameras. I think you know there's different cameras for different things. Like my FX30 can't take photos. You can take photos, but you can't take like burst photos. So it's no good for anything really. I think the Sony A5 or R5 is the next camera I was looking at for video, because you can shoot in Sony S-Log. So then I've got the same color grading sort of process between the two cameras if I was using like a second angle for talking head, but also it's got the burst shooting for photos. But yeah, I don't think there's really one camera, because I was always like that. I was like, which camera do I get? Okay, I'll get the Canon G7X. What do I get? Before I got the FX30, that was kind of an impulse buy, because I seen it on eBay. I think it was like 1,600. Normally it's about,
people will be like, that's expensive. That's cheap for that camera.
That is cheap. That was I think normally it's about 2,000 or 2,500. I was like, no, I'm buying it.
But did that come with a lens, or was it like you had to go buy the lens separately?
No, I had to buy lenses separately.
See, this is what I'm talking about, man.
But it was after I sold my bike, I ordered that off eBay. My mum was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you spending that much on a camera from eBay? You don't know if it's going to work.
Oh, right, of course,
I was like, well, it's fine. I'm going to buy it. Like, it was just completely impulsive. Bought it, arrived, mint condition. It had like a cage on it.
Oh, like, for like, I know what you're on about.
So you can attach bits to it as well. And then ordered 2 lenses off Amazon. A Sigma 20, no, it wasn't 24, 18 to 50. Because it's cropped frame, that's essentially a 24 to 70 on a normal camera. And that works really good. And then I got an f1.4 30mm. I never use that. It's too
I always hear this, I think it's the Sigma 16 f.14 is meant to be quite a... Obviously, that's very kind of limited to what you can do, because there's no zoom on it. It's locked at 16mm. But from everyone that I see doing the talking head stuff on YouTube, that is like the lens that everyone seems to use, right? And it is very effective. I think the thing that's great about Sony is their autofocus. I mean, granted, if you're probably still using manual focus a lot of the time.
Rarely.
Really?
Is
it? It's just that good, isn't it? The autofocus. It's because it's eye detect.
Yeah, it's got the eye tracking on the FX30. It comes up with like a little dot around people's eyes.
And it is so like
it's insane.
It's crazy.
Like it's faster than our eyes.
Yeah,
at focusing.
Yeah, it's madness. Like I have like a Lumix for my stuff, so I'm still manual focusing a lot, and I did use the autofocus on it for recording a football game a couple of weeks ago, and it's okay. Like it's pretty good, to be fair, but there's like the odd time that if I pan away too fast, it takes that split second where it's like blurred. Yeah, that really annoys me. But it's like it's still, that's not bad. But like the Sony one is just, it's unbelievable. Like I would use the autofocus on because I've got Sony camcorders for like the podcast stuff at the moment. I would use the autofocus on that because I think it's a generation before what's on like the new cameras, so it's still pretty good. But the downside to the camcorder for me is that one of the exposure settings has to be one out of focus, exposure, and shutter speed has to be in auto. You can't use all the manual. And it's not that the camera can't do it, it's just because Sony wanted to protect their higher grade models, because that's a great feature, being able to control everything in a camera.
I mean, my Canon G7X, you can do everything manual, and it was like 400, 500, which I mean is a lot for a little camera. Yeah. But it works really good. Yeah, I still use it.
I mean, like we were mentioning Soviet EV10. That's a rocket, but Sony EV10, ZV E10. There we go. Which is like a really popular camera for people maybe just starting out, or people that are doing like their own kind of content creation thing, and it's got that focus as well. Yeah, great. I think people do use it to stream. You get a dummy battery that does kind of tend to deal with the overheating to an extent. But yeah, just like that's what, maybe 500 something. You'd have to get the lens separately, or you could get the kit lens for like an extra £100 or whatever.
That was the camera I was going to get after the G7X, because it's cheaper than like a big camera. And I just didn't know what to get. But that was going to be during my time of like mountain biking videos and stuff. That wasn't going to be to start a business. I never thought I was going to do this at all. It just happened.
You just fall into it. Yeah, totally. But like we'll get into some tech stuff, because that is something that I'm very interested in talking about with you. So obviously the FX30 for me, like one of the big, obviously aside from the focus itself, one of the biggest things that I think goes in its favor is the fact that it's got a fan. Because I'm always so paranoid when I'm looking to upgrade the camera soon in here. And I've been close to like buying something, and then I'll read like an overheating issue, and I'm like, right, no, because I don't want to take the step and then have to send something back and like have like weeks where I've got no cat, But like I think you were mentioning the low light, it's maybe not. It could be better than that. Like I've got a Lumix S5, which is dual native ISO, which tends to deal with that pretty well. But and you said S-Log, so I would take it that's Sony's version of V-Log, if that makes sense. I take it that's just like a branding thing.
Just like log footage.
Log. Because log's the actual kind of type of
footage. And then you convert it to Rec 709.
And you put like a LUT in, or do your own grading or whatever.
It's S-Log 3 Cine. It's called. It's for the cinema. Because
I've got a mate that he just got a Sony A7C Mark II, I believe, and that thing looked. Yeah, I'm very surprised at like the lenses on some of these Sony cameras, because like on the Lumix it's quite chunky, and it's almost like a telescope at times, whereas like the Sony ones seem very kind of compact and are very like subtle. Like, they're not too noticeable. Like it's not like a massive kind of like beak of the camera comes out. It's like very kind of still compact. Is that the same with the FX30, or is
the lens is really small, really small on them. I think the main thing for me with the Sony FX30, like the selling point, was the color. Yeah. Sony's color is incredible, like compared to Canon, for example. I think the FX3, the full frame version of the FX30, was used for a few Netflix films.
Yeah, no, I've seen that because the S5 that I've got is a full frame camera, but for some reason it has like the slightest of crops, and it is at like the highest of high, like 4K, 4.2.210 bit. People have just tuned out by now because I've just overstimulated them with that kind of numbers. But it is like it's very good in low light. It's a very good sensor and all that. But they have upgraded that since. So there's like a Mark II, a Mark IIX, and all that. So like the deal was there because I think it was a 2020 release camera, so it's still pretty recent. What do you know? What kind of year the FX30 came out in that? I feel like it must still be the last couple of years. I can't imagine.
I think 2 years probably at most. It is fairly new. The technology and it's really advanced. Yeah,
and that's kind of across the board with Sony, really, isn't it? Like you said, the color in it's got like a distinct color.
Yeah,
like,
you can just tell that it's shot on Sony.
Like I see the I think one of the best things probably about the brand is that you can get different cameras and it's pretty easy to make them look the same color wise. Obviously, like there'll be differences in like quality and that, but I've seen people use like, I think I've seen a 3 camera setup where it's a Sony A7 III is like the wide shot.
Yeah.
And then they had like I think they actually upgraded, funnily enough, to XF30s, but before then they had like an A6 300 and an A6 400, and they look similar, you know, like you wouldn't tell. I understand it's the same brand and that, but it has that certain kind of
aesthetics.
Yeah, and it does look nice. And the autofocus, I mean, that must just be like such a lot, like
a luxury.
Yeah, it must just like take an element of like thinking out of what you have to do, right? Because obviously you're still doing a lot of things like exposure and you know, not rule of thirds, 180-degree rule and rule of thirds, but like just knowing that that's taken care of must be amazing. Yeah,
definitely.
So what I actually remember you saying that you started out in DaVinci Resolve, and then when did you kind of transition over to Adobe? When was?
I was using Adobe sort of this time last year. I was just making little videos for myself just on the side along with the mountain biking stuff. But to be honest, mainly I do still use DaVinci. The majority of my videos, like for clients and stuff, I don't edit anymore because I'm too perfectionist with it, and I'd spend hours. Yeah, on like a 15-second reel. I'd be there for hours. Just
are you kind of someone that like? There's like the old kind of stereotype of like a musician writing a song or someone doing a drawing, and like there's like tons of crumpled up bits of paper. Like
that's me.
So how does that work now then? If you're not actually editing the client work on that, have you got someone that's kind of a part of a team now, or?
Yes, I've got a guy in Germany who does them. Yeah, so I've known him for a while. It's been 2 or 3 years, and he's always done video editing. He's exceptional at it. And I just said to him, you know, I've got a bunch of videos. Do you mind doing them? And he helps me out with that. I do edit sometimes. Like I've done a wedding video in August last year, and I edited that myself.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. Was that, but it was kind of like it was on like a hill. I remember like seeing like a kind of like grass in the background.
Yes, it was Elandonnan Castle.
Right,
by just past Inverness sort of way. So I do edit sometimes. My own stuff I like to edit because I'm very picky with it.
Is that? Yeah, I was just about to say, is it almost like, because I find editing like quite a cathartic experience when it is something that isn't like a deadline on it or something, you know, where I feel like when I'm doing it for other people, even though I still enjoy it, I feel like there is a much more what needs done, let's do it, rather than me going, you know, and thinking about it and being a bit more kind of relaxed with it. Like I feel like I'm more kind of 100 miles an hour with it. But I was going to ask you, what's the most satisfying thing for you about post-production? Because for me, it's when I've finished a project and I can just put it in media encoder and hit the play button and the render button and go for a coffee and just know like in 10 minutes time, like the project's finished, like the computer is doing the rest of it from here. Is that kind of like similar for you? Do you kind of get like that, I wouldn't say relief, but they're just, it feels good when something's finished that you've put a lot of time into?
Probably just knowing that the computer didn't blow up.
Yeah. Well,
so I started with a 2020 MacBook Air, 8GB of RAM. Worst thing.
Yeah, it's not enough.
Worst thing, yeah. So I just recently got a Mac Mini, the new M4 one, and got that in 32GB of RAM, which is, much better.
That's more like it, Like I've been using like a Concept E7 Windows laptop, so it's used for a lot. Well, it's used for video editing, but it also deals with like a lot of like 3D graphic stuff in that, and it's good. But I do wish that I'd managed to find like an Apple option, and I probably will eventually when that laptop dies a death, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I'll push it until it can't be pushed any longer. But I remember when I got my Lumix S5, I filmed like this massive long clip in 4K MOV, and I totally forgot that MOV is like an Apple format. So when I put it into Premiere Pro, it sounded like my laptop was having a transatlantic flight. You know, like I need to shut the shit down. Yeah, so I did see that in one of your kind of reels that you put up on LinkedIn that I thought it was an iMac to begin with, but I take it it's just like the monitor for the Mac Mini, like similar with the keyboard and mouse and stuff.
No, so the keyboard and the mouse are from Apple.
Yeah.
But the monitors are just from Xiaomi, I think.
All right,
It's
okay.
like some Chinese company. They were like £80 each. Really good.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Is it, what display is it? Is it 4K? Is it?
No, 1080
1080,
I think. But 180 hertz refresh. So really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great for slow motion footage, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Color on them's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. Like, do you still find yourself learning things in like the editing, videography space? Like for me, it's like really small, stupid things. Like I've came so far in terms of understanding like rule of thirds and focus and all these things that are like the fundamentals that can sometimes be quite hard to grasp in that a lot of the time. But for me, it's like really like silly things. Like I've always been on the mindset I film, I edit and I export all at the same resolution. So film 1080, edit 1080. Where I was watching like I think it was last year I watched a video where you can oversample stuff. So like you can film in 4K, actually downscale it to 1080p and export it to 1080p, and that's going to look better than what actual 1080p footage recorded does.
Yeah.
I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
And then I could see like the difference straight away. And then in the video switcher I have, that's a 1080p output. So I've always put the cameras in 1080.
Yeah.
But apparently, if you keep it as a 4K display, it just records it as like a downsample 10. I'm like, I feel like kicking myself when I hear that because I'm like, I could have made things that I've already made so much. And a lot of the time, the people that I'm delivering these things to probably don't notice.
Yeah.
But it bothers me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I don't know if it's
absolutely.
the same for you, but like,
Yeah, well, I film in 4K, and 90% of the time for Instagram, I export in 1080.
yeah.
Because if you upload it too big of a file, it's not going to load well on
No.
Instagram.
I think for social, I think for Facebook, it's like 10 gigabytes the main, as much as you can. It has to be 1080
Is
as
it?
well. Yeah. Because I posted a documentary on there a few years ago, so I was kind of, and plus, like if your internet's playing up, a 4K transfer or upload, that's not a fun time. Like
It's not.
it's
Even
like,
the 1080p, it takes a while.
I know.
But in terms of editing, one thing that I learned, probably shouldn't say this, but I can't color grade at all. I'm horrific at it. I mean, DaVinci Resolve's definitely the way to go for color grading, but it's just so confusing.
Yeah.
There's just so many things. Like, I could look at a video and be like, that color grade's nice, and kind of have a rough idea what they've done to achieve it, but I just can't seem to figure out exactly how to get that.
I think
look.
there's like a lot of things in your face at once with like the curves and
Yes.
like the mid, and it's just like, and I understand it because I actually, so you went from DaVinci to Premiere. I was thinking, as we were kind of talking about beforehand, about me kind of, let's just say flirting with going to DaVinci Resolve for cost purposes. We'll leave it at that. I don't want to, but I remember I was a filmmaking buddy of mine had switched to DaVinci, and I didn't actually realize it was free. I know there's a paid version of it.
Yeah, there's
like
the
a one-off payment
studio
for studio.
version,
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth it.
No, I don't think so. I think there's I think you can get it free if you buy a Blackmagic. Well, if you buy a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K camera, you get like a free, but then you're spending like £700 on like a camera body. So
Yeah.
you know. But anyway, I was like, if I can, this was actually even before I actually started doing the business stuff. Was like, if I can do it in here, then I don't have to pay for editing software anymore. And the difficulty in changing editing software when you're used to something for me was amazing. Like, because even though it has like a setting in DaVinci where it can set it up and make it look a little bit like Premiere Pro.
Yeah.
But things like multicamming and all that I would, you know, it's second nature to me when I use Premiere Pro. I was like searching around DaVinci. I couldn't find any of these things. I was like watching YouTube tutorials and I was like, right, this can't continue. Like, I've just got to go back to what I know. So they've kind of got me anchored in a way, but hopefully they don't hear that. Otherwise, I might not be able to get a deal in the future. But Yeah, so I want to ask, what's the best video you think you've done so far, in your opinion, and why?
Best video. They've all been really short because they're all social media stuff.
But I think there's an art to that, because I think I really struggle. Like, I did a kit video recently, which I think was 1:20, but for me that was still too long.
Yeah.
Like, and it probably was. It was okay. They were happy with it in that. But I really struggle to, because you're talking about such tight windows of like 15 to 30 seconds, pushing it, and I always end up putting too much into it. Where I was like, I did a video for a boxer. I said it was going to be 5 minutes. It ended up being 15. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so like I think there is like an art to actually being able to kind of make something effective in that short period of time, and that is the way forward these days, isn't it? In terms of how attention spans are going in that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think all the content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. needs to be short. But a problem that I run into a lot is I'll, make these videos that's 15 to 30 seconds, and then the business owner will review it and be like, "That's way too short. I want something that's 1 to 2 minutes." I'm like, I can make you that, but no one's going to watch it. Yeah. Like, not because your business is boring, not because the video's not good.
Yeah, it's
people
just
don't have an attention span. But the best video, that's a really tough question.
We can circle back around to it, because I'm interested in how you got into web design. Did that kind of match when you got into video as well, or was that before? After?
Well, I was doing web design kind of before. I wasn't very good at it, and I was using a software called Go High Level, which is essentially a SaaS thing for agencies. So it's a software as a service company, and it's not very good. But I got speaking with a friend of mine who still kind of has a website business in the area, and he essentially took me under his wing and mentored me to just make a few websites. And then he was, getting referrals in and getting leads, prospects into his email inbox, and then I would do the work for him and take a cut. But now we're looking at, I think I'm going to be buying the business officially at some point in March when I turn 18.
Sweet.
But it's going good so far. I mean, we've got good amount of clients. I think he's been doing it for like 8 years or something, but he's a bit older now. He's got kids. He's wanting to settle down and have a job, and stable income, not worrying about, where's this next project coming from that's going to feed my kids. I think when you get older, it's kind of stressful. But I think for me, being 17, almost 18 now, it's, there's very little risk involved for me. I can. So
is it Nightwing?
Nighting Web.
Nighting Web. Sorry, Nightwing is a Batman, isn't it? But I did see it mentioned on your LinkedIn, so I take it that is the sphere of what you were just referring to there. So what is it you use to do websites now? Considering you're on Creative Cloud, I think there's one on there, Dreamweaver, is it? Is that what you're using? Or
no, we use WordPress and Elementor Pro as a plugin for WordPress, and that's just like a few £100 a year for Elementor. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's really good, and it allows you to make a WordPress website that's really responsive and functional with insane design. Yeah, essentially, with Elementor you can do whatever you want. I'm working on actually making a client portal for the Cinemalist. So instead of just emailing the client a link to Google Drive, which is pretty boring, they're going to have almost like a login kind of page on my website.
So they can see everything that you've done. Yeah,
exactly. So they've got all their content. They can book their next shoot. They can see their invoices, their contracts and whatever, and pay their next month or whatever, just to make that process a bit easier. Because for some people it is quite daunting. Yeah, 100%. And speaking of daunting, especially when I go into businesses like we were speaking about earlier, there's a lot of people who are so scared of the camera. They're like, oh, we need to get our hair done for this day. We've got the videographer coming in. It's like, don't worry about it. And then I'll show them the video and they'll be like, oh, that's not that great. Not the video's not great. They're like, I don't like that angle you've got of me. It's like, nobody's actually going to care. Of that one angle. That didn't look that bad. Yeah, it's like when you show them like log footage, it's like, there's not a lot of colour in that. Like, well, there's a reason behind that. That's to come. All the time.
I think I think that is one of the things that can be frustrating with this, is like a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people kind of see, because especially with short form stuff, right, they probably just think that didn't take a lot of like time to make and stuff. But those kind of things are the things that are the attention to detail and things of that nature that goes into stuff like that is
Yeah.
usually the most kind of precise, isn't it? And some people, like, I remember someone asked me if I could live stream a football game, and I'm like, do you understand how much equipment that would take? The power that would take? Like, that's not just going to get done in the playing fields, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like the amount of money that I'd have to be paid for that you're not going to pay is basically, you know, because we're talking probably like hundreds of pounds, you know, to like cover everything there. But how much networking have you done since getting involved in this type of business? Like, I find it like kind of amazing. Like, I know we were saying that there's a lot that are not resistant, but like kind of intimidated by it. But there's also a lot that kind of, you know, it attracts, and people just kind of go headfirst into it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I never really thought that from doing this that I would end up doing a bit of media work for the BBC. That happened because one of the guys that comes in here had another guy on who worked for the Northern Scot, and then he started coming in, and he then got a job at got a role in the media team at Elgin City, and then you know, and it all kind of rolls and, you know, branches off into different other things, you know.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Sorry, you see, this is where I go down like rabbit holes and everything, but it's just the networking. Like, how much networking have you done?
How much networking? To be honest, I'm a bit of an introvert.
Yeah, same.
I don't really like people. I'm scared of people. I'm getting better at it now. I think it really started when I started going into businesses and just kind of facing that fear. Because I realised no one's going to do it for you. You either do it or you don't.
Yeah.
And it's going to make or break you and or your business. But networking, I mean, LinkedIn, I started kind of posting on there, speaking to people, and there's a lot of spam on there. A lot of people that are very.
I get one every day.
They're very annoying. I get a lot of cold emails sent to me, and I can't knock them. I used to be on the ringer, cold calling people, cold emailing people, and now I'm on the other end of it, the receiving end of it, and I see why people hung up very quickly. But yeah, I've not done too much networking as yet. Just kind of going with the flow at the minute. Yeah, doing a bit of cold outreach here and there.
Yeah, I think like for me, I've always had not an issue, but I've always struggled to like the whole sell yourself motto. Like I very, because I started this as a hobby where it wasn't just me. There was a few people involved where we would. Well, first of all, it was just mates. It wasn't meant to have any guests on it. And again, it just kind of spiraled into, you know, it like became a little bit of a local kind of popular thing for a little bit in time until I tried to kind of keep it going whilst I was doing the other stuff, and then I was like, I remember I was at one of these, even my birthday, and I was like, I probably shouldn't be doing that, you know, like I should probably actually go have like a life outside of this as well.
Yeah.
So I try and fit one in when I can now, but just I've realised from doing like the whole producing stuff that I much prefer being behind the camera than I do being in front of it.
Yeah.
Like for me, like if someone has my kind of role is like if someone has like an idea, or if someone like my job is to handle all the technical aspects of that, where they're literally just focusing on doing something like this, and everything else, like they're not having to do a me where I'm kind of like, you know, looking to see my camera still on. That's all taken care of, and so that's what I find like really cool about it. And it sounds a bit kind of like up myself, but sometimes it feels like an active service. Like there's one of the guys in here has got his own Patreon now, and the fact that obviously it's still in the early stages, so it's like I think it's maybe at 10 to 15 people, but that's from hundreds of people that have been listening on the other platforms and taking a small percent. And it's basically building up an audience again in a way to convince them with the extra perks of an extra episode and a giveaway and all these things that come into it. But I think he was saying to me that he was going to pay for a little bit of his son's Christmas present with the money that he got from Patreon 1 month, and that made me feel good. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying that's all through me, but the fact that you know, me and him as a team, I guess, like even though it's like a client business relationship, that we've managed to build something to where that's possible, to where you can make a little bit of money, which could potentially grow to being like a really good source of income. So like again, it's kind of going over that journey thing. Yeah. That I think's something that I probably took for granted a lot at times when I have been like, oh, I can't really be bothered doing it today, or like, things of this nature.
Yeah.
Or I need to make this. I need to get to here. All these things that swirl around and anxieties and all that type of stuff. But so I'm interested in this because I don't know. Were you ever like big into films when you were younger? Or that did that ever play an influence into like? Because the brand name is the Cinemalist. Were you ever kind of a film buff growing up, or even now, or
not really? To be honest, no. Just videos in general. I think I'm more interested in the modern video, like of social media, of YouTube, of documentaries. I really want to get into making documentaries of people like young prodigies and athletes and stars. Those type of people. And I was thinking of doing like a sort of founder story for local businesses.
Yeah.
Just going in and recording them in the shop, speaking about
how they were created and things of that nature. No,
precisely.
definitely.
And then just follow them around for a couple of days, them just going about their day, essentially, and just make something cool out of it.
How much footage do you shoot for an average video? Like, what are you working with to condense down to a 15, 20-second video?
Probably about 2 hours, 3 hours.
And people will be surprised with that, but like I was part of a team that made a documentary a couple of years ago, and that ended up being a 25-minute short film documentary. Not like as a short, as in like an Instagram short, but like it wasn't a feature film basically. And I think we had 6 hours of footage to go through for that. So like you are having to like film tons more to give yourself options to all these different things. But one thing that I've noticed when it goes to like, for example, when you're filming something for a business, you probably have to take into account what they would like, but also have an idea in your head of what it's going to look like beforehand, right? Whereas because I was still kind of in the infancy of like film and cameras and all that, is the documentary stuff is very much film everything and then create something out of it. So like, have you done both those kind of things? Have you filmed stuff and then created stuff from that, and have you had an idea in mind beforehand and then obviously made that happen from filming? And what kind of approach do you prefer?
Yeah, well, the YouTube videos that I made were all kind of like that. I'd stick a GoPro and I knew there were some shots that I wanted to get, and some of it was planned. I was like, I'm going to make a cool transition between this and this, so I'm going to get these two shots. But I think I prefer probably just going in, filming what I can, and then working it all out later on.
Yeah,
I enjoy that, because it's almost like you've done the filming, which is fun, and now you come home and you edit, and you've got this whole like creativity opportunity.
And it feels like a different experience as well. Yeah. Like it doesn't feel linked in any way. Like when I'm editing stuff and I've seen what I've shot, I was like, I can't remember shooting that.
Yeah.
Like, it just like feels like completely different. But I agree. I feel like if I was to do obviously if like someone requests something, that is a bit of a different story. But I feel like if I was to have to think of an idea, then film it and like match the idea I had before, I feel like I would overthink that and like just probably lose interest in it eventually because like I would just be like, whereas I do like the kind of I like the freedom of just going about filming stuff because that's kind of where I'm in my element. It feels like, I don't know if it's the same for you, but when I'm out with a camera, I kind of feel like there's a lot of external stuff that like just gets blocked out of my vision. I'm very like tunnel vision on what I'm doing. And I think that's been really good for me in terms of dealing with things like, I wouldn't say social anxiety, but like sensory environments and all these types of things that like play a part. I was going to ask as well. Well, actually, I will ask. Have you ever seen like any kind of film that you really appreciate the cinematography of? Is that something that if you were to watch a film now, would you be thinking about stuff like that while watching it?
I do to a certain degree. Yeah, I always think how cool that is and how they must have set up that shot. Like sometimes I'm really interested in the behind the scenes of stuff and like how the lighting goes into it, how all of the sound is actually fake, but it appears to be real. Where are the microphones in this? Where are the cameras in this? That kind of thing. I think about it a lot when watching stuff. But I don't think I often like appreciate cinematography. I don't think people do, to be honest. Yeah,
so I think nowadays as well, it is kind of the same in terms of what are like the most popular movies. They're like action-packed franchises, right? Like Fast and Furious, and I know that's not a meme at this point, but like they're on like number 12 or something now. But like it's all the superhero films, and don't get me wrong, they all look great, and I'm sure they've got their own stories to it. But there is I'm trying to think of like a film. I don't know if you heard of The Godfather. No, so it was like a mob. This is actually showing my age right now, but this was a mob film about the kind of mafia in America from the 70s. And they did a trilogy, and it actually what started a lot of kind of famous actors' careers, like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and guys like that. So, but there's not those films that were all like 3 hours long, and I don't think there's a market for those type of films now.
No,
you know, like
films are going to be 10 minutes soon.
Yeah, no, for sure, definitely.
Well, I mean, what a lot of people do on TikTok, they'll post like a snippet from a film, and then they'll post the part 2, part 3, part 4, and people scroll through their profile just watching this.
And it's almost like
movie.
watching a TV series, but in like way more condensed format. Like I've never been able to watch TV series, especially American ones. Like there's like 20 episodes that are an hour long each time. There's like 7 series. I was like, I can't donate like 8 months of my life for this.
But, there is some series, don't get me wrong, that I have been really engaged with. Just like some of them, the storytelling, I really like that.
Yeah.
You know, if someone's got good storytelling, I'm hooked all the time.
Yeah, because it is relevant, isn't it? Because you're still, that's the main thing about film. You are telling a story, right, a lot of the time. And whether it's through an advertisement, whether it's through a documentary, whether it's through a feature film, it may be different stories. It might not be the same category, but it's still the same kind of premise. You're trying to get a message, I suppose, across.
Yeah. And I mean, the different shots you use, the colours that you use, the music, all of that plays into that, you know, emotion and story.
Yeah, 100%. So between what's your kind of favorite differences between DaVinci and Adobe? I know you mentioned the like I think you mentioned on LinkedIn, sorry, that color grading is better on DaVinci. But what's stuff about Premiere that you prefer over DaVinci? For me, there's a lot more AI tools. There's a lot more kind of I know this sounds strange. There's a lot more accessibility, even though like you're having to pay, so it defeats the whole purpose of that word being used with it. But there is a lot. I think a lot of people that have never edited before ever would probably find Premiere Pro an easier learning curve than DaVinci.
I would say DaVinci.
Yeah,
it'd be easier. Yeah, I think so. I just think the interface of it. I started originally using LumaFusion. Have you heard of that before?
No, I've not.
No, so that's like a iPad, iPhone exclusive, exclusive one. It was like £30 up front, and that's it. You pay for it and you use it. And that was really good, and it's got a similar interface to DaVinci. So I actually figured out a way to install the iPad version of LumaFusion onto the Mac when I first got the MacBook, and that's what I used until I found out about DaVinci, and it was pretty much the same with much more features. I think the main difference, I'd use Premiere more for like effects and like masking people out, and you know, adding
After Effects,
adding captions, because I mean, for DaVinci you have to pay for the auto captions, whereas Premiere it's included. So Premiere for if you're editing like short form people talking, but DaVinci for like professional video, I think.
I the color, what I've seen people do with color in DaVinci Resolve is crazy. Like there is a difference, and you know, maybe one day I will give it a go again, and I think I just panicked when I didn't know where everything was, and I was like, I just got to stick with what I know. But that's interesting and I suppose that is the way people are going to use that more because it is free. So I think that creates a problem for Adobe down the line, because I think that stops people using there's people that are on it that are going to keep using it because of different. For me, it's what I'm used to, right? But that kind of stagnates when no one else is coming on board, right? So it's going to be interesting. And I do like the DaVinci model that if you do pay for it, it is a one-off payment. Like you're not having to pay
forever.
Pretty
much. I don't like that about Adobe. There's not an option at all. Like even like £1,000 up front, that's it. People would pay it.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, the one thing that I found amazing about Adobe in the sense of shock was I got Adobe Audition because a lot of the time I've been using Premiere Pro for the audio stuff, but then I started, when I was doing the podcast stuff as a hobby, I started learning about LUFs and how important it was to have them at the right kind of standard for platforms and YouTube videos and all that type of thing. And I knew they had like a match loudness thing, so whenever my mix was done, it would just match it to what the platform is, so the platform couldn't raise or reduce the volume of the video. And it's basically to make sure that like no one has to click their phone up or down. It's like just like a nice kind of level sound. And So I was like, right, I'll go get Adobe Audition because this would be really useful for me. And then I can't remember what happened, but I found a different way to do it. So I was like, oh, right, I'll just cancel Adobe Audition. But they enter you into a 12-month contract. So if you try and cancel before that's up, they charge you like an early penalty of like the rest of the 12 months.
Did you get charged that?
No, so I'm just going to have to keep it because I couldn't pay that all in one go.
Oh man, that's
So
what they tried to do with me as well.
Yeah.
But, I was younger at the time, so I had no money. They couldn't take it anyway.
Maybe that's what I'll have to go with next time. But no, to be fair, I'm quite a fan of the Creative Cloud. I mean, that was a few years ago that happened, but obviously Premiere's my main editing software. I do like After Effects. Like my friend Finn, he's an animator and he's big into After Effects. And before I would literally just like, can I ask a favor? Can you do an animation for me? But having like messed about with it for like the last 6 to 8 months, it's really cool what you can do on that. And the fact that like you make something in there, save it, bring it into like the video that you're doing. I mean, that it's all very interchangeable, and I like all of it. Like you can edit Premiere clips in Adobe Audition and straight back into Premiere. It is a very like,
it's a really good workflow.
What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the Northeast Corner for 2025. We're finally back when I'm being able to find time to record these episodes and whatnot, when alongside my producing work and that, which obviously has to take priority for my business and stuff. But we're back finally for 2025, and I'll be getting episodes out where and when I can. But before we get into today's episode, I have a little request and a little bit of a shout out to give. So on the 3rd of May, a friend of mine, Marc Wilcox, is going to be taking part in a white collar boxing event in Aviemore. Every penny that's raised from this fight will directly go to the Ladybird Development Group charity. They help the early development of very young children. Every donation pays for them to receive one-to-one support, education and therapies by highly qualified key workers who are skilled in maximising their potentials. Whether you fancy seeing Marc get bashed about or are looking for a good night out, this is the perfect opportunity to have fun and give the kids of the future a fighting chance. A little bit rusty on the old, I wouldn't call this an ad read, but little intros these days, so bear with me. Please donate using the link provided, which I've left Marc's Just Giving link down on the post of which this podcast is attached to in the description. Understandably, not everyone's going to be able to donate during these difficult times financially, but if you don't have money to donate at this moment in time, if you could share the Just Giving page and the event poster and all these types of things that are attached to this podcast through listening, it would all go a long way to helping get a good cause, raised a good amount of money, and a good night of fights as well. So best of luck, Marc. And anyway, on to today's episode. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of like ask about, we talked about hyper-focusing, like from the kind of conversation we had, that seems like it plays like a part in your life, but in like the creative sense, in like a real positive way. I mean, that's how I find it. Like sometimes, like for me, it can become a negative because like I hyper focus in other areas of life, of like worry and like like rumination and all that type of stuff. But in terms of this specific thing, like I think it's like a real strength. Yeah. Like do you find it? You find it like I feel like I hyper focus on things that that are not good for me in the sense of worrying, but I hyper focus. It's like the two kind of extremes, like worry or something that I enjoy, and like there's nothing in between. Like is that similar for you, or are you able to kind of like channel it a bit more balanced?
I wouldn't say so. I think having ADHD, I think I've always described it as a superpower. I mean, people call it a disability. To me, it's an inability. I know it sounds cringe, but it is. The ability to hyper focus on something it's amazing. But there's times where I just can't do it, and I just can't be bothered with anything. And like you say, you can hyper focus on the wrong things, and that's not good. But hyper focusing on the likes of the videos or business or websites, it's a pretty good thing.
Yeah,
definitely. Like an amazing skill.
Definitely. Thank you very much for coming on today, my friend. It's been a pleasure to actually meet you, because I was aware of your work about maybe 6-7 months ago. And I did think back then, I wonder if I'm going to come across this guy at some point. And then you reached out on LinkedIn, and we kind of set this up. And before you go though, what I've started doing with these recently, because when I started doing these, I feel like I never kept any memories of what I was doing. So what I've what's the word, to kind of clarify before I go into this. I have kind of plagiarized Stephen Bartlett a little bit here, where at the end of his podcast, whatever guest he has on, he gets them to leave a question for the next guest without knowing who it's going to be.
Okay.
So I have a question from you for the last guest I had on, which was Chris Saunderson from the Northern Scot.
Okay.
And I don't know, I've not seen the question, right? So if it's anything crazy, it won't be. But if it was, I would veto it. But I've not seen it. So I'll ask you that question. We'll wrap up. And then if you're okay with signing the book and leaving a question for the next guest, that would be, and it can be anything, it doesn't matter. Like,
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel a bit nervous doing this now because I don't know what people have wrote. So far it's been okay, but.
Might need to censor it out.
Yeah. So the question is, in one word, how would you like people to describe you?
In one word. That's tough.
Yeah.
One word to describe me. How would I like people to describe me
Yeah.
in one word? That's really tough.
What would it be like creative? Would it be? I suppose it would be initiative, right?
Well, I mean, integrity is probably,
yeah,
but that's not a word to describe a person, really. But that kind of concept, you
yeah,
know,
I think so though.
I just want to help people with their business. Yeah,
it's important though, right? Like it's a rare commodity in today's world, I would argue as well.
Yeah,
like
100%.
So
People are so money oriented,
yeah,
and it's not good.
The whole kind of hustle grind set thing. Like
my sort of like motto for life and business definitely is to serve and not sell.
Yeah.
So focus on serving people. The money will come as a byproduct.
Yeah.
But focus on what you can do for them. If you can't do anything, leave them. I've had so many people that have tried to work with me, and I've been, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to charge you, definitely, because I can't actually help you. You're not going to grow from this. We'll leave it. So money, nah.
So what you're saying is you're not going to be launching any meme coins soon?
Not yet.
I'll keep an eye out for that. Everyone seems to be launching one of them.
Oh man, it's crazy.
I mean, it's mad the money that they're making from them as well.
Yeah. Have you bought one?
No, I would never do it. Like, but I just see it and I'm like, what are people thinking? Like, because that, I mean, it is like a pyramid scheme, isn't it? It's like that. That's basically what it is. It's people realizing that they've got big followings. People will give them money for anything, and then they're out of there. You know, like with no kind of accountability needed. Yeah, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. But yeah, like you said though, that's all focused around money, isn't it? It's like the kind of quick. There's no kind of moral compass behind that. It's just I'm going to get money and that's just it.
That's
like,
it
doesn't matter if I scam all these people that follow me or whatever. So anyway,
it's crazy.
Thank you very much for coming on, mate. I'll get you to write and sign the book as well in a second. If anyone's still watching out there, I know I've been really inconsistent over the last couple of months. If you could leave a rating on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, like and subscribe on YouTube and all that jazz. And I was going to say who I had on next, but then Archie would know who he was writing the question to, so I can't leave that away. But
I've covered my ears.
Yeah, you will. If you go back and listen to the last episode at the end, which was actually meant to be this episode, then you'll know where the person is from next. I know that sounds like the weirdest riddle of all time, but figure it out for yourself, and I'll see you next time.